Mr. King, what tale of horror and the macabre are you working on now?
Oh, I don't feel like writing horror right now.
Oh, that's too bad.
I'm working on a biography of Benjamin Franklin. He's a fascinating man. He discovered electricity and used it to torture small animals and Green Mountain men. And that key he tied to the end of a kite, it opened the gates of hell!
Well, let me know when you get back to horror.
Will do.
Welcome to the Horror of Babylon, where stupid people say stupid shit. Spoiler warning for Stephen King's It. Trigger warning for loss of a child, sexual assault, parental abuse and honestly, a lot more than that. Please like, share and subscribe this terrible show. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/thehorrorofbabylon. You probably won't regret giving us money.
Welcome to episode 21 of the Horror of Babylon, where we will be discussing It by Stephen King, Part 2. I am Ryan, and with me as always is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
And the little girl giggling and giggling.
We all go down here.
And the little girl giggling in the balcony is Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hello. There's just the look.
Okay, so we're here to talk about It. And like I said on our episode 2 weeks ago, we are breaking this novel up into 5 different parts. So, of course, you're not expected to read this for, one episode. Last week we talked about part 1, which was chapters 1, 2, and 3, plus the first interlude. This week we are discussing up to chapter 10, plus the second interlude.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
We went into it last time about some of the background and King's influences and his state of mind when he was writing this book. One thing that I had in the notes that I just completely neglected to mention is that his initial inspiration for this book was the children's story, The Three Billy Goats Gruff. And Daniel, you weren't aware of this. This was something I pointed out to you for this reread.
Yes,
Are you seeing those Billy Goat Gruff references pop up everywhere now?
Yeah, especially just because so much stuff references bridges or just mentions the story by name.
Mm-hmm. When Ben hides out in the children's library from Bowers and the gang, the children's librarian is reading The Three Billy Goats Gruff.
And I can't remember his name. The gay character who got killed, Adrian,
was attacked by Pennywise from under the bridge.
And they're all crossing the bridge and it's thrown over. It's all over the place once someone points that out.
Yeah, and Pennywise pops up from underneath things all the time. Georgie, he's underneath the sidewalk in the sewer grate. In Ben's chapter, he comes out from under the bridge as the mummy on the river.
Things float to the surface.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to jump into structure and themes. We have a couple things to talk about. Last time we just kind of listed some of the various themes that we're going to be talking about in this book. Fear, friendship, meta-horror, loss of a child, memories, bullying, the dark side of small town life. Matt, I'm going to throw to you. In part 2 specifically, what themes from what I listed or others that you can think of were prominent to you?
Part 2, really lays the groundwork for understanding more of the personality for the kids, as a whole. friendship is just like a huge thing in this one too. You get a lot of lighthearted moments in this one more than I would say most of the rest of the book.
A lot of part 2 is them kind of finding each other.
It's I mean, there's a lot of not so friendly things going on, but I feel like for lightheartedness, this is where you're going to get most of it, and a lot of just them being normal kids.
Building the dam, going down to the Barrens to play guns.
The building the dam thing, I think, is the strongest example of that, especially like when Ben just stays behind while Bill goes
to get Eddie's
the asthma medication.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's just like a power move's the wrong word. He stays behind when he didn't have to defend somebody he didn't even really know.
And this is after
what he just went through.
Yeah.
Also, his poor books.
I still feel bad.
It always bothers me, the library books. Like, you got to pay for those, and the librarian likes him so much. He probably is like, "Whoa, what's going on, man?" Daniel, what themes to you are prominent in part 2?
I think the meta horror really shines through here. You start to get a lot of those examples of why the kids are saying what they're saying. And it's really kind of strange, especially going back now, because meta horror is really big, especially these days. Like, people always want to comment on the state of horror. And here, Stephen King was doing it like 30, 40 freaking years ago.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's sort of weird to go back and see that meta horror analysis was kind of already a thing. It's just not given the credit I feel it deserves.
So here's a good time to bring this up. This part describes the kids' first encounters with Pennywise. And for a lot of them, he's becoming movie monsters.
That they've seen,
yeah. He becomes the Mummy, the Wolfman, the Swamp Thing.
Rodan,
or a bird version of Rodan.
Yeah.
Something that was tossed about when the new movie came out, and they changed it from the 50s to the 80s, is that they should have updated the movie villains.
The more recent ones?
Yeah, like, as 80s kids, they would be afraid of Jason or Freddy. What are your thoughts on?
I honestly am still disappointed that didn't happen, especially, like, let's just take copyright out of it for a minute. How many horror franchises does Warner Brothers freaking own? They could have literally done that. It would not have been a legal issue.
All the prominent ones, anyway.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's stuff that they could have done, and I'm like, I feel like they just didn't take advantage of that.
Let's say that you go to see that movie. Let's say it's the stand scene where he's alone in the synagogue, and instead of it being the picture, like, he like turns around and then he turns back around and there's Freddy Krueger. Like, would that have taken you out of it?
Not if they would have done like how the book describes. Like, these monsters are more real than any of the monsters that have ever been on the movies.
Where Mike's giant bird actually is like a giant
bird.
Real bird.
I feel like you could have done something with that. Freaking WB owns Godzilla. Well, they don't own Godzilla, but they own distribution
rights in America.
They could have made a little cheeky. They could have even made like a King Kong reference, and I would have been tickled pink. That might not have been scary, but I would have appreciated it.
Okay. And also throwing you, Daniel, how does the structure of part 2 continue to build off of the suspense and the mystery that's established by the writing structure of part 1?
It's still kind of unfolding the memories at this slow burn pace. Like, they're remembering just enough to get them to go there and be afraid of what they're walking into, but not enough to stop them.
So we have several different chapters here. Each of these chapters, one of the losers features prominently, but all of the chapters feature various losers.
Yeah.
But all of the chapters open with one of them as an adult on their way to Derry. The first one is about Ben. It opens with him on the plane, and like in his chapter from part 1, it's not from his perspective, it's from the stewardess's perspective. She thinks, oh my god, this guy smells like whiskey, he's so drunk, he's going to throw up all over the place. And then you get...
Thinks he's dead.
She's kind of freaked out by it a little bit. And she's giving, if I remember, he gives him like her like smiles that makes her feel uncomfortable.
Okay, so let's go ahead and... Matt, did you have any thoughts on the structure of part 2?
I mean, I like how it is laid out. How we do get them as adults, and then we get memories. it's a lot of back and forth, and it kind of just, it's a lot of like, so here's them as adults, but then they're remembering something, but then maybe they remember something else, and it goes back and forth. So it kind of does a really good job of just building it up and kind of laying it down. It's kind of like a puzzle at that point.
I've read reviews of people who've read this book one time and said that the structure was very sloppy. And then I've read reviews from people who've read it multiple times, and the structure is kind of the first thing they point to that's a positive about it. And I can kind of understand on one read through that you maybe don't get your whole mind wrapped around
What's
you
going
might
on?
just get confused though at that
Yeah.
point. If it's your first thing and maybe you're not like fully paying it. Say you listen to the audiobook and it's your first time reading it, and you're at work or at the gym or something, you might get a little confused if you like stop paying attention for like a few seconds.
Yeah, even a few
and
seconds.
then you're like, oh, are they talking as an adult or are they talking as a kid? But I think someone who has full intention on like reading it or listening to it fully, I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy to follow for the most part, because it clearly it clearly states when they're gonna like flash back to a previous time.
Yeah.
There's one, I completely agree. There's one exception, but it's in part 5. So we'll get to that when we get there.
I think one small problem might be for some people is this might be the first book of this length that they might have tried to read, and then it's structured like this.
Yeah. So comparable other books I've read of this length: Shogun, Centennial, Taipan, some of the later Harry Potter books, they're all just chronologically structured.
Yeah.
I've never, even some of Stephen King's other books like The Stand,
are chronologically structured.
Yeah. The only other one that's similar is Dreamcatcher, which it's not quite as long as it, but it's pretty close, and it does a lot of jumping back and forth between it has a group of characters which are actually from Derry, and it jumps back and forth between them as kids and adults. So that's kind of similar, but for most of the time, if the longer books I've read don't have this kind of complicated structure.
And I know it's not for everyone, but I like it because it sets it apart.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into characters. We're going to do the same structure we did last time, where we're going to go through the chapters and talk about the characters as they come up. But I've also come up with a few different questions for each of our losers. So we're going to analyze them a little bit individually as characters. First chapter is Ben Hanscom Takes a Fall. First thing, when we encounter each of our kids here, we're going to talk about what makes them a loser, why do they feel excluded from their peers and their community. We're also going to talk about their relationship with their parents, and we're going to talk about their first encounter with it. So, Matt, I'm going to throw to you. Why does Ben qualify as one of the members?
When we first meet Ben, I mean, right off the bat, he's getting bullied. I mean, because we first meet him in class. It's like it's the last day of school, right?
Yep.
And then they're getting their grades, and he's hoping that what's the bully's name now?
Henry.
Yeah.
He's thinking like, well, I didn't let him cheat off my test, and he's gonna be bad, but maybe he'll get held back, and I won't have to deal with him as much. I mean,
I like that he played the long con, or tried to.
Tried to. There were nothing bad happened to him because of it.
like from what we get here, we can tell that he doesn't really have much in sort of friends, which comes in later when he meets the rest of them, and that's what's like great, because he becomes friends kind of instantly, just like and then we hear all about his crush on Bev, and then I don't know. I mean, he doesn't have any friends. He's a big kid that gets bullied about that all the time.
How's it going, tits? That would fuck with me.
Yeah,
I think it was Belch Huggins that Ben is remembering coming home from going back to school after Christmas vacation, and Belch saying, "Hey everybody, look what Santa Claus brought Ben Hanscom, a big old pair of fucking titties."
he also always eats lunch alone.
Yeah.
Like he's always just sitting away from everybody eating lunch.
There's this one part where he compares the narrator compares his lack of friends to a blind person. He's not even aware of what it's like to not have friends, because he just never really had them.
There's a part where they're talking about his mom, And if his mom asked him if he was lonely, he wouldn't even know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you answer that when you're that's just your perpetual state?
I don't think he thinks he's lonely because he really likes to he reads a lot. So I think he takes that as like, oh, I'm not lonely. I have books.
Yeah, because that's just how
he's a very smart kid, as we can see when it comes down to them building the dam. He's just, I read this in a book. I can do this. Like it's, I don't know. I mean.
He's a fat kid and he has no friends. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I drug it out. But yeah,
no.
I just didn't want to say
he's
a fat kid with no friends. I mean,
if we weren't going to expound on these things, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel, can you tell me a little bit about his relationship with his mama?
Him and his mom are not as close as Eddie and his mom.
No.
But they still have sort of a tight-knit relationship. His mother's very concerned about his well-being. She's always checking up on him. Gives him that watch. Now, if you're late for dinner, even by 1 minute, I'm calling the police.
I would too.
In that situation, she's one of the few parents in Derry who's like cognizantly aware of stuff that's going on.
So, as we go through these characters, we'll see that a lot of the parents of the kids in the Losers Club are abusive in some way, be it physical, emotional, sexual.
Mm-hmm.
Is Ben's mother abusive to him?
Yes, but that's not really brought up until, I think, part 3. It's like a little bit hinted here. Like, overprotectiveness isn't the right word. She wants to...
I feel like it pretty explicitly says that she copes for not being able to provide for him better by making sure he eats well.
Yeah.
And in doing that, she gives him extra portions.
I thought that was
or the leftovers when he's like reading or something, right?
I thought that was brought up in part 3.
No, it's brought up in this section. That itself is bad. Like just shoving food in front of them. But compared to the other parents,
no.
Except for Mike's parents are like a different.
They're.
I feel like they're the most normal.
There are some good parents in this group.
Yeah.
She's
on the better side.
She's on the better side, in the middle, leaning towards the better side.
So she could, maybe cut back on the stuff a little bit.
She's also coming from like a real place. She's a single parent.
Mm.
His dad died in World War II. She is a working mom. Unlike, it seems like Eddie's mom doesn't have to work. When her husband died, maybe he had some sort of life insurance policy or whatever. It doesn't. Yeah. Doesn't seem like she's working, whereas...
She has an OnlyFans.
Ben's mom is killing herself in a mill to provide for him every day. Yeah. So he's a latchkey kid on top of not having a dad. And she's, teaching him to cope through food, which is not good, but it's something most of us do in one way or another.
But she's obviously raised him well. I mean, he's as you can see when he goes to the library and stuff, he's a well-mannered kid.
He's well-mannered, he's emotionally balanced, he's intelligent, he respects women in a lot of ways that other kids in the story don't. Or maybe he's just afraid of Beverly, but...
I think it's a little column A, a little column B.
Yeah.
There's definitely a respect there, but there's also just I'm so infatuated with this girl, I do not know how to approach the situation.
I mean,
I would be too. We've all had crushes.
I feel like we've all been there.
Yeah, that's not a criticism. It's just.
I still have that sometimes.
I just stumble and fall into relationships now, so.
I just don't leave my house.
That would make it easier. Oh no, I can't go out because of COVID. Yeah, that's why. No,
the sun's out.
Pennywise might get me.
So speaking of Pennywise, Matt, tell us about Ben's first encounter with it.
Is this on the bridge?
Mm-hmm.
Are we skipping all of it? Is that skipping or is that before everything?
So,
I'm trying to remember. I read
where the bulk of this part takes place in the summer of '58. The bulk of this chapter takes place on the last day of school. He meets Pennywise January of that year.
He has like a flashback.
He has a flashback where
he describes it. That's where I'm getting myself. Yeah, so he's walking across. He's walking across the bridge, and he looks out over the bridge because does he hear something, or does it?
I don't remember what draws his attention.
I think it was a noise. I think he heard a noise or something in the pipe, and he looks over, and he just sees Pennywise out there, and the balloon, you know, I can't remember, he talks to him.
It's floating against the wind.
Doesn't he tell him to take the balloon? And
isn't it the balloon that draws his attention? Because
because it's floating against the wind.
It floats against the wind towards him, and he becomes immersed in it, and he can't look away, and he wants to take it because who has a balloon that flows against the wind? Nobody has that. That's badass. Like, they'll be
pretty badass.
He is a loser right now. He could be the coolest fucking kid at school if he has a balloon that will float 2 people like that when in the storm, and then it becomes that thing, and then as far as I know, then Pennywise starts creeping, and then that's when we get like the mummy, right?
Right,
yeah.
And like Daniel was mentioning earlier, he's described as, this isn't the mummy from the Universal movie.
It looks go ahead.
This is a mummy that would be in a sarcophagus in a museum in Great Britain.
Yeah, just fully dried out. But he's still wearing like the silver suit, which is something I forgot about before I started reading this again.
The silver suit is like,
that's
like
keeps
the
showing up
defining thing. It's always pointed out, and no matter what form he's in. I feel like all the kids that see him mention the silver suit.
Before we started reading this again, I remembered the mummy. I remembered the bird. I didn't remember he was always in the silver suit.
It's just always a part of it.
Honey!
What?
Where's my super suit?
What?
Where is my super suit?
Put it away!
Where?
Why do you need to know?
I need it!
Don't you think about running off to doing no daring do? We've been planning this dinner for 2 months.
The public is in danger!
My evening's in danger!
You tell me where my suit is, woman! We are talking about the greater good!
Greater good? I am your wife! I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get!
Another just observation, the newer movies actually has a more book-accurate costume for Pennywise than the miniseries does.
Well, the miniseries is more of like just like a normal
like
clown,
a Bozo suit, yeah.
Which, I mean, he is compared to Bozo. It's in the book still, but
yeah.
It's one of the few things I'll give the remake.
Yeah,
was the silver suit.
I mean, the remake, the first part.
Yeah, the first part.
Very good.
Well, we'll get to
that. We'll get to that. Okay, and then this chapter is really our first meeting with Henry Bowers, who is probably, outside of the Losers Club and Pennywise himself, the most important character. And he's mentioned in part 1, but it didn't occur to me till we got to this chapter that you don't meet him until part 2. He and Belch Huggins and Victor Chris form this triumvirate of bullies that constantly harass the losers throughout the entire book. First impressions on Henry Bowers, and before I throw to you guys, I just want to mention this. Every time I read this book, I forget that he has a pink motorcycle jacket. Because I just have the picture of him with the black leather jacket burned into my head.
I also forgot about the pink motorcycle jacket.
I just reread it and I forgot about the pink motorcycle jacket.
He's just really about that breast cancer awareness.
There's not a lot about it. It's like he has a pink motorcycle jacket.
And he thinks it's badass.
Somebody tried to give him shit about it, and he beat the fuck out of them, and now nobody mentions it to him anymore. That aside, Daniel, what's your first impressions on Henry in this chapter?
Some of the few criticisms I've ever heard about it were the bullies were cartoonishly evil, which is kind of part of the point of the town.
Yeah,
but when I'm sitting there rereading it, I am like, this is like if you had a school shooter stalking you, that everyone knew was going to do it.
They're violent.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that they're not good because even is it his dad that's also the shitty one?
So yes, I was going to say
and he'll come up in Mike's do we get to that? He'll come up in Mike's part, but I mean. They're pretty much just like almost like when I think of like a Switchblade gangster from like Grease or something.
I was thinking West Side Story.
Oh yeah, West Side Story, Grease.
But yeah, you know what I mean.
West Side Story is better.
You're the one after long.
I've had bullies. I've never had somebody.
I've had bullies that made fun of me, but I've never been held down and someone tried to carve a part of my stomach.
Yeah. Now I've had people say that they were going to do stuff like that, but never like actually had a knife pulled on me by a bully.
Yeah, no, nobody
know
nobody around here that I've ever ran into would have actually done that.
But this is also circa 19.
He is like one drink of spoiled milk away from just killing people.
Yeah, that's what, like,
as a teenager.
He reminds me of that dude, like I said, that's a school shooter that gives you every possible warning sign that nobody does anything about.
When I was in second grade, our class bully brought a knife to school and pinned my best friend against the gym wall and put a knife to his neck.
So see, these people apparently exist. So
he was kicked out of school.
Well, I would hope so. Holy fuck.
But he wasn't prosecuted because of the length of the blade. It was like 2 inches or under, and it had to be.
In elementary school, you're supposed to fight with Yu-Gi-Oh cards, not blades.
This was before Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Pokemon.
This was before Pokemon cards.
I don't.
Solitaire.
You guys want to come over after school and play bridge?
You're supposed to play Rochambeau.
You guys will play Old Maid.
Kick each other in the nuts until somebody quits.
If I beat you an Old Maid, I get your Lunchable.
Okay, we're going to be talking about Henry a lot.
Yeah,
so
that's my impression. He was. I wouldn't call him cartoonish, but I might understand somebody who's never been in that situation calling him cartoonish.
I feel
Brian's
like
apparently been in that situation.
He's just besides, if we take Pennywise out of the equation, Henry is scary.
Yeah.
Like he is, and throughout the whole book, he is terrifying.
You know, with the few rewrites, you could have just literally made a story about a really horrible school.
I mean, this could have just been a minus Pennywise, just a murder, like a fucking, almost a murder at a school documentary like novel. I don't know, like, I think he's
it could have been Rage.
And of course
we gotta cover Rage.
And of course he's flunking stuff. So and I can't remember what he says.
His dad's mad because he's going to do summer school.
Oh yeah, because he has to do summer school so he won't be able to help his dad out. So he's going to get his ass beat.
Yeah.
You know, more than if he just
had been held back
or got held back.
If he were held back, he'd be beaten up once.
But now he's gonna, and then that's why Henry gets even more mad at Bill. Even though we've all had that person in school that tried to cheat off of us, but I've never been.
I was that person. I tried to cheat off other people.
That's why you always just sat by your friends, and you're just like, yeah.
I didn't have any friends.
I had like 2.
Okay, so moving on to our next chapter, Bill Denrow beats the devil. So Daniel, and I'm asking you specifically, why is Bill qualify as a member of the Losers Club?
Because he can't talk.
Get it out, Bill.
That's almost literally the only reason, because he's otherwise the most normal of these people.
I mean, he's just a dork. I mean, he's just if we're gonna go by the typical loser definition, he's just a nerd.
Because he's always described as like somewhat attractive as far as kids that are that age find each other attractive, and he's the leader. He knows, like, he always thinks of the stuff to do. But because he can't get a word out edgewise, everyone...
The kid gets on his bike and screams, "Hi-ho, Silver."
That's the only time he doesn't stutter.
It's the only time he... Yeah, when nerds enjoy themselves, they don't stutter.
No, he doesn't stutter when he imitates people.
Right.
That's
the only regular time he doesn't stutter. Yeah. So, and I want to throw this in here, going back to structure. Both in the audiobook and on the page... How do you like or dislike his stuttering as it is in the book?
I think the person who's reading the audiobook does a fine job.
I think it kind of gets on my nerves, but I think it's supposed to.
It sounds like a stutter to me. I used to have not as bad of a stutter as that, but...
Well, I don't know, I like it in the audiobook just for the fact that the dude that's narrating it actually does it, and they don't just like...
I like it too,
they don't just like half-ass it.
I like it too because it gets on my nerves. It puts me in the mind of trying to speak with somebody who has a blah, 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 blah. Sorry.
And you know, they even mentioned that like people will finish his sentences for him, or adults will try to guess what he's trying to say just to get the conversation done with.
I hate it when you stutter my name, Bill.
Yeah.
What about his relationship with his parents, both first pre-Georgie and then post-Georgie?
Pre-Georgie, it seemed perfectly fine, aside from his mother hated rock and roll.
What a bitch.
Yeah.
This makes me sad because it brings up the question that, so after Georgie's death, it talks about how he would sit in between his mother and his father, and he tried to tell jokes, and
He just tried to be a kid.
his dad would kind of like it. It brings out to where Zach's his father's name, right?
Yep.
Kind of like still tries to be as good of a dad as he can be without, being sad about Georgie. But his mom seems she is done. She's almost like done with Bill as it is, and it makes me wonder that if Bill died and Georgie was still alive, would they be any different, or would they be the same?
They're definitely unintentionally being emotionally abusive, but it comes from the pain of their loss of their other son. It's not,
We liked that one more than you.
Yeah.
See, this is where I don't have... You have kids, so you would understand that more than we would. But also, I mean, I guess if I had kids and I had 2 kids and one of them died, I still wouldn't... I'd be sad, but I wouldn't want to, like, take that out on the kid that's still living.
You'd be sad, but you'd be like, at least I kept the one with the stutter.
And it's like... he definitely points out that Zach tries to do his best to not... Because I think he even tries to, like, ask him the joke's punchline and, like, to get it out. I think it's his mom, mostly, that is very just...
Super distant.
She's just done. But I feel like that's understandable, because, I mean, if you're going to carry somebody for 9 months, give birth to them, they were there, it's part of your life, and then they're just gone. But also, why weren't you watching him out in the floor?
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't say that, that's like shitty, but also, why weren't you watching your fucking, 5-year-old son? Who?
So, as a dad, I come at this from 2 angles. One is, if I lost one of my kids, I would probably be broken. And I can't imagine just, like, continuing life normally after that. But then the flip side of it is you're a parent of 2. You're not done raising the other one. You still have to show up every day for the other one, which that's got to be, like, the hardest thing. And this is something that comes up in King's work a lot. The 2 most relevant examples I can think of is in Pet Sematary.
That one's tough.
Yeah. The description of them trying to deal with, I think her name is Ellie, after Gage dies. And then also in The Body, which is the novella that Stand By Me is based off of, the main character from The Body is basically Bill Denbrough. He's like a 10, 11-year-old kid who wants to be a writer, and his brother died. In this case, it's his older brother who was in the army, and his parents have just, like, completely shut down and just don't let him in anymore, don't ask him how school was. Very, very similar thing.
Did King have a sibling die? It's just something that now that you bring it up, does seem to come up a lot. Stephen King died was one of the first daughters.
When he was 2 years old, his father left the family, leaving his mother to care for him and his brother. I knew that. Let's go to his wiki real quick. I think literally the hardest I laugh in this book is where Richie introduces Stan, and this is Stan, he killed Christ, and he goes, I believe that was my father. Okay, so talking about Bill's first encounter with it. In part 2, we actually have 2 different ones described, one in a flashback. Well, actually, the first one is in a flashback within a flashback.
Yeah.
And then the next one is within the current timeline of the running flashback. Daniel, tell us a little bit about Bill's first encounter with the Pennywise.
It is the one thing from the original adaptation that still haunts my dreams. He looks into his photo album because he misses his brother, and a photo winks at him, and I still dream about that kind of nonsense. Just pictures looking at me, and I know they're watching. And then the second one is Richie
Tozier.
He takes Trash Mouth over to not so much prove it. Richie seems more like he wants to disprove it.
Well, yeah, because Richie is pretty much, because everyone else, because when they're down at the Barrens, everyone else tells their story.
No, man, I haven't seen anything.
But Richie is still kind of, because there's, what's his name?
He had a dream about the statue of Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan.
Yeah.
And he's trying to, like, oh, this isn't real, and he's trying to disprove it. And then, thing with the...
And he goes in, and the picture comes alive and starts playing out what was there.
Well, because they look into the picture and there's a guy. I think was it a fedora? He's like in a fedora,
And it just.
but then they see Bill and Richie in the photo.
And they look over. I think they look over to a bridge, if I'm remembering right. And there's like balloons coming up from it, and the clown pops up, and Bill reaches into the picture, screaming no, and it cuts his fingers.
Well, because he's saying that. Is he saying that Georgie's in there? He's taunting Bill with something about Georgie.
He's saying that Georgie's going to be hiding in your closet one night with a thread of piano wire.
That comes up later. That comes up with Bev. Because Bev is. That comes up later in Bev's section when she's cleaning out the sink, the second time after she wakes up the next day, and he tells Bev, tell Bill that Georgie's going to be in his closet with a thing of piano wire.
It's referencing this scene.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Are we doing these out of... Oh, yeah, because that's later after... No, because Bev is last.
Bev is the last chapter cleaning up.
Yeah.
So when they encounter Pennywise in the photo, he threatens him with Georgie being in his closet with the piano wire. And then in the last chapter of part 2, they hear... That is what you're talking about.
Because Bev is... snake in the drain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when she talks to all the kids. We're all the dead kids.
And Bill also he almost gets his fingers ripped off.
Yeah. And I think Rich even says that if he would have reached any further, he would have pulled back stubs.
He would have had stubs. He would have had no fingers. Oh, there's also the thing where because they had to sneak into Georgie's room, so they put the record on the record player, so his mom would think they're in.
You boys wrestling up there?
You boys wrestling?
Some boys just wrestle.
I thought the ceiling was gonna come down on me.
you guys playing sack grab?
She when they go into the house, she's in the kitchen and she doesn't come out of the kitchen to like say hi or offer them a drink or a snack or anything. She acknowledges from the kitchen that, oh, you're here, okay, hi Richie, and that's it. Whereas I don't know about you guys, but like
if somebody came into my house, I'd want to see who it was.
Yeah, like my mom would have came out and said hi and asked how school was and say like, you guys want a snack, you guys want a drink, blah blah blah. Like, is your mom coming over to get you later? Like all that stuff.
I mean, like you said before, his mom is pretty checked out at this point for the most part.
It also shows just what kind of power Pennywise really has when he can make a picture real and you can reach through it.
Well, and progressively we'll just see how everything that he can still do.
I just love the progression of the power creep. It's not even his final form.
Yeah,
I think
literally.
This is a big element of why this walks the line between horror and fantasy, because you can't think too hard or you can't question Pennywise's powers too much. You kind of just have to, like a kid would, accept them as they are.
Yeah, just roll with it. It's great.
Because if you start pulling on too many strings, it's going to be, I don't want to say the sweater will fall apart, but it's going to be less enjoyable. Okay, so moving on to our next chapter, One of the Missing, A Tale of the Summer of 58. So this opens on Mike Hanlon, and he is kind of a framing device for this chapter where we find out about Eddie Cochran.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a lot about Mike in this chapter, and we get a lot about Mike and his family in the second interlude. But let's go ahead and just kind of roll Mike into one here and talk about him. So, Matt, why does Mike get his membership card for the Losers Club?
I got a bone to pick with Mike and his favorite snack.
It was onions and peanut butter?
Peanut butter and onion sandwiches.
So
I've never paused an audiobook so quick in my life to just be like, what kid that age wants a peanut butter and onion sandwich? And are the onions raw?
Cooked?
Or are they cooked?
I would imagine
are they white
they're raw.
or red. I'm not going to lie,
pro-
guys. As
they're
soon as I
probably
heard
white.
that again, I went downstairs and I tried it, and I almost threw up. It was not great.
I feel like it would be better with cooked onions.
Yeah,
maybe
Maybe
grilled
like
onions.
like grilled or sautéed onions, but like biting into a peanut butter sandwich and then just getting that, just
His mother had the correct
onion
response
just-
to it.
I don't know. I feel like out of calling, I don't know. I feel like calling Mike a loser is, he is a part of the group. But when I think about Mike, he just seems like just a normal kid for the most part. Like out of all of them, like.
Yeah, but I think you could say that of most of them.
But like I don't know, when I read his chapter, it's just like, goes home, he helps his dad with chores during the summer. Yeah. They pack it all. He's just living a farm life for the most part.
The real reason he ends up in the loser club is really shitty. It's just because he's black.
Exactly.
It's not fair, but that's the reality of it. That's 1940s or 50s racism.
It's 1950s. It's Maine.
Yeah.
I mean, in this section, the racism stuff comes up a ton.
They're the only black family in town.
And it's weird because his dad chose to move back to Derry.
It's almost like something was calling him there.
He was not there, and then after, because his dad was in the military, and there's a whole thing about him being in the military and stuff, and him getting stationed with another group of soldiers there, and then left. I mean, he got married, and then he came back, and he got that farm, and then there's the whole deal with Henry's father, and one of I love the part where he just threatens Henry's dad with the gun.
This is gonna sound bad, and I'm trying to think of a good way to word this. I think the best part about the racism in this book is that it includes the what you would call the non-intentionally malicious racism, and it comes from one of the other losers. It comes from Richie. He has he
does a slave voice
and or a Jim voice.
Oh, he has two.
Yeah, and it's something.
It's like one of the. It just shows one of the first voices he does.
Yes, and it just shows the kind of cultural mindset that they had back then. He's not intentionally racist, but he's 100% being racist doing this.
When I was a kid, I did not go around doing quote unquote picking any voices to other kids, but I definitely said racially insensitive things as a kid that I didn't realize I was saying.
I did a gangster voice because I was into rap and nonsense.
I like to do voices. I did a bunch of inappropriate things as a kid for attention. I mean,
but yeah, you see that's one of the things I'm saying is that's my favorite thing about the racism in this book.
Is the unintentional racism between kids, but then you also get the super intentional racism among adults.
You get to see it through maybe not every possible lens, but you get to see it through a lot of lenses.
At least those big two facets.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Mike has the best relationship with his parents though.
Yes.
Him and his dad are very tight. I mean, his mom doesn't seem bad either. His mom actually seems
pretty normal,
very responsible. Because there are moments where don't tell your mom about this, or she might, she'll murder.
She'll shoot me, and then she'll shoot you.
Yeah. She whooped me something silly for being late by 5 minutes.
I mean, I don't know. And his dad is very well rounded. I mean, they work the farm. He pays them for the work that they do.
He pays his son, and he
pays their own, and he gives them a share of the farm every year, and he gives them
for his college.
The profit.
I actually love that relationship.
But I mean, the issue here is that his dad has just had this time period for a black person, the shittiest time. As we learn about the black spot.
Yes, which we're going to talk more about in Scary Shit.
Okay, is that later? Okay, I'll talk about now.
I think that's the second interlude, right?
That's second interlude.
I mean, and then we get the setup for what is Mike's encounter with it, where him and his dad, I think, are watching Godzilla.
They're watching Rodan.
They're watching Rodan. And that kind of sets up for
the big old bird.
And before we get into Mike's encounter with it the first time, so take this with a grain of salt because this is coming from a white guy, but I can't speak to authority as a Stephen King constant reader because I've read a lot of his books. He has the reputation of not writing people of color in the most sensitive way. A lot of his characters who are black have a lot of magical blackisms.
He's often credited for the magical Negro trope.
But Mike Hanlon is just a kid.
He's just a kid.
He's one of my favorite characters in this book.
Yes.
Him as a kid and him just as an adult.
He's not one of my favorites, but I respect him.
I just like his
He's
character
not
a lot.
written with any, like, black characterisms that, like, Dick Hanlon from The Shining. He does all that jive talking.
Yeah, I was going to say he's not constantly listening to jazz.
Yeah. Or, like, Mother Abigail from The Stand and her Southern Baptist Christian stereotypes.
And not to say that those people don't exist, but I'm just saying...
They do, but...
When a white guy writes about them, it comes off a different way.
And when you get to the point where you've read 10 plus Stephen King books, and
it keeps popping up, yeah.
Every black character is like this, when you get to Mike Hanlon, it's like, oh.
I'm just glad he's a historian.
He's just a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, and then he just grows up, and he's just
I work at the library.
He's just the guy that never left, which I think is like the ballsiest thing.
He's Obi-Wan.
He just didn't want to. He was like, I'm staying here. I'm gonna do all the homework that I need to do, and when the time comes, the time comes.
If he's Obi-Wan, does that make Stan Anakin?
I have a thing. We'll get into that in the last episode.
Okay, I'm ready for that.
I also have a Stan as Boromir, but we'll get.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I'm counting down the days now.
Mike is Gandalf. Okay. Okay, as our local kaiju expert, I feel like, Daniel, you have to take it away with Mike and the bird that is Rodan but is not Rodan.
Yeah, so for some context, Rodan itself, not including his crossovers with the King of the Monsters, Gojira, I've seen the movie Rodan 13 times. So I'm pretty sure that if I ended up saying a Pennywise monster, it was going to end up being a kaiju.
Well, that's our homework later.
I'm just like...
of some sort.
So I understand the bird's supposed to be, like, a symbolism of Rodan, but, like, Pennywise can do all this other stuff, but he could just turn to... I would have... Maybe it just would have been too funny just for Rodan to be standing outside that little smokestack and just being like, So
the reason why it appears as it does is because Mike, as a baby, his mom set him down in the yard as a baby and left him alone, and he's attacked by a crow.
Okay.
And then
he's watching this movie.
The night before he encounters Pennywise, he and his dad watch Rodan, and subconsciously it kind of reawakens that.
It connects all the dots. Mm-hmm. And Pennywise...
I just don't think it would have been hilarious.
just Rodan's chilling there.
Just Rodan's.
Well, that's why I was saying, well, like, would Freddy Krueger not take you out of it? Because I think maybe, like, Rodan would.
I don't...
Not if you did it correctly.
I think if it was, like, old... I think if they're going to do...
There is a fine line that you'd have to walk.
I think if they're going to do the newer, like, horror, stars in that movie, they would have had to, like... There would have been some kind of, like, old-style filter put on it. Because if, like, say, they turn around and, Freddy Krueger is there. I don't want to see, 2020 Freddy Krueger that's all snazzed up. I want to see the 80s. Like, I want to see the OG one. He's going to have to look not so new. Or else it might
The big example that I kept going back to is use a xenomorph. Is I was expecting a xenomorph in the movie instead of a werewolf.
But I also like...
I didn't get the werewolf.
I know we're backtracking, but I like that they still use the old stuff because it is supposed to be this time period, this older time period, and these kids. I mean, they go see one of those old. Was it Swamp Thing or
they see
the
teenage werewolf.
The werewolf.
That audience score on Rodan is pissing me off.
But I mean, even in this, they go watch that old movie, so I think it still makes sense for even in the newer movies for it to be those older movies because those are still iconic horror.
Yeah.
They may not be as scary to us now because we have so much other things that we deem scarier. But I don't know. Holy shit! Always forget how many.
There's a lot of them. I own every one. The only one I haven't seen is Shin Godzilla.
Isn't that the new one? Like the newer one from like 2018?
Even I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw this movie in theaters. Ron hit me up. He's like, I'm on my way to the theaters to see a special screening of Shin Godzilla. I was like, okay.
I
So just went with.
what were we talking about? I got sidetracked.
Mike and the Bird.
The first
Oh,
one with
yeah.
the bird.
Because his dad sends him on those homework assignments, so that he not only will he have 3 days where he's not working, but he'll understand the history and different kind of stuff that's going on in town. And there's even parts like when he took him to that what was he, a sheriff?
He was I don't know if he's no, I think he's chief. It's Borton, chief of police.
Okay.
Yeah, because
and it's like, I need you to understand prejudices that police have without me just outright spelling it out for you.
So that's something I wanted to bring up too. It seems unusually sensitive of Stephen King to portray. Okay, this is weird.
Yeah.
With the family, I just recently watched the new Cheaper by the Dozen with Zach Braff.
There's a new one?
There's a new one,
Like,
yeah.
recent new?
Like this year, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It has Zach Braff, the guy from Scrubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it like a streaming service only movie?
It's a Disney Plus original.
Was it good?
It was not bad
Compared to like the...
Compared to I don't know, what's your ranking for Cheaper by the Dozen movies?
It was Cheaper by the Dozen.
It was fine. Okay, the premise of it is that Zach Braff he gets married, he has a couple kids, his wife leaves him. He meets an African American woman who has a few kids. They get married in like this Brady Bunch-esque way, and they become not only a blended family but a mixed race family. And he is raising her black son. And then later in the movie, the original dad comes back into the picture, and he's like, "You're a white man. You cannot teach my son how to be prepared to be pulled over just because you're black." And that's a big theme in this new Cheaper by the Dozen movie. I think King portrays this kind of sensitively, where Mike's dad is kind of preparing him for this part of being an adult black man by showing him this chair.
I love Stephen King, and I defend him from a lot of criticisms, but that was almost uncharacteristically sensitive.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
It was
like,
not
no,
like him.
Like, I'm agreeing with you. It's like, I'm sitting there and I'm reading that. I'm like, that is like, especially for, I don't know if you'd call it early Stephen King. It feels early to me now, but you know,
it's
when it's
mid-80s.
like, when it's like almost 40 years old.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it early at this point.
Yeah.
It was written before I was born.
It was also written before I was born.
Same.
So, I anything before I was born is early.
Okay, so let's move on to Eddie Cochran.
Oh yeah, this is a great chapter.
He's our standalone character for this section. Could Eddie have been a part of the Losers Club if things had broken differently for him?
You know, they talk about that with
Bradley,
how there's a sense that some kids are just not like them.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think Cochran would have fit in.
He definitely has the background to qualify with the.
He's a stepfather, just
a
monster,
and
a piece of shit.
I can almost hear Richie in my head making 2 Ed jokes. Like, which Eddie am I talking to in some stupid ass voice?
I do wish that King would have called him something other than Eddie.
I actually appreciated it for this exact joke in my brain.
It confused me the first time I read the book.
This is honestly one of the standout chapters for me. Is you get like a bunch of that mystery build up, you get a lot of that history, and it slowly unveils, and then you finally get the reveal.
Well, it starts with talking about his brother dying, right?
Dorsey.
With the police reports and the reporters asking the cops about
different questions.
And of course, the cops are like, don't
Eddie,
answer anything.
Because Eddie's missing, and it slowly unveils to the point where they find that he killed his brother.
Well, what's the brother's name?
Dorsey.
Because he died to... This is like blunt trauma, pretty much, right?
His dad beat him to death with a hammer.
And then we get... Do we get the current scene of the stepfather here.
Yeah, it's
where-
all
It's all in
And
one
is it-
chapter.
I can't remember. Does he say Dorsey was there, or does he say Eddie was? I can't
He
remember.
says Eddie was there.
Because he
And then
dies,
and then
right?
he hangs
And
himself.
he said Eddie was here tonight, and he
It's
himself.
one of those few examples of like adults seeing portrayals of the real shit that's going on in town.
So it's kind of like, at that point, I'm like, good job, clown.
Yeah.
Yeah, good job. Good job.
He also murders the child.
But we
Yeah.
This
he
chapter.
killed a shitty dude still.
Yes.
I mean, I still feel really bad for Eddie.
It's equivalent
as well as
exchange.
Dorsey.
You have to kill a child to kill a shitty adult.
Because Eddie is like having a shit day already because his grades are bad.
Yep.
You know, and for all we know, he doesn't really explain it. He could have like ADHD. Maybe he's not great in school, like
Or
something
just
like
the
that.
abuse is fucking with him.
And well, yeah, because one of the scenes the teacher explains that he came to school one day and both of his eyes were pretty much shut, like he couldn't open them. He just got, and then he said, I can't remember, the teacher asked him, and he says, my dad got even, or my dad got.
That was Dorsey, his preschool teacher, said he woke his dad up from a nap or something. His daddy had to even him up, or I forget how.
There's a saying that they kept using, and now I can't remember it.
I can't remember exactly what it was.
But I mean, the police and everybody are saying that, you know, he's not going home because his grades are bad, and even the principal wouldn't even. I don't know why you'd be like, why the reporters would be like, hey, what grade did he get? I need this. Oh, all Fs? All right, I'll put that in the newspaper.
They interview the teacher who had tried to report the abuse of another kid and was shut down by the board and the principal and had her job threatened, and now she doesn't report child abuse anytime she sees it for fear of her job, which is the opposite of how it goes today, where if you don't report it, you can lose your job.
Yeah. This chapter is so good to me that it could have been a standalone short story.
Yeah.
It's very concise, but it also fits with everything else going on because it shows you what a lot of the other kids that have gone missing ended up dealing with. This, the monster from the Black Lagoon, only it's actually dripping slime, and it's...
Oh, that's where the monster Black...
and,
this one, yeah.
And its gills are pulsating, and slime's dripping from it.
I mean, this section's really good because, like you said, it does give you that, like, oh, this is what happened, because we don't get breakdowns of what happens to all the other kids.
And then
they just go missing. But this one, he's like,
and
all
then-
right, I'll show you what happens.
And then it pops his head off and swallows it. It's fucking great. I love it.
Because he goes to the park, and there's...
He's hiding from his stepdad at the park.
This chapter alone is why I want Junji Ito to adapt this story, because I think he would actually draw this whole sequence.
So the scariest part of this chapter for me is Eddie he's afraid of the swamp thing or the creature from the Black Lagoon because he saw the movie, but when he sees the movie, he sees the zipper. And as Pennywise is killing him, he's reaching in the back to try and find the zipper to show himself that it's not real. And then, just to keep our continuity up, we're in the summer of 1958. Eddie Cochran is the sixth kid killed. The other ones are first George Dembro, October 1957. And then we have Betty Ripscomb, which is the kid with the pipes. Cheryl LaMonica, who was the teenager who had a kid of her own.
And like the 40-year-old army boyfriend.
Yeah, who was murdered, and now the grandparents are raising her kid, and there's a scene where it's like, I don't know what to tell the kid. And then Matthew Clements, who is the one that the hiking kids found. Veronica Grogan, which this one is described that her body was basically slaughtered and frozen into the ground.
Yeah.
And then Eddie Cochran's number 6.
I love Ryan's notes on this. He's like a private detective. He's basically Mike at this point. I'm gonna keep all these notes.
Well, he's the character that I relate to the most as an adult.
Well, sometimes if you're listening to this book and you want to talk about it and you don't take notes, it's like there's just things that you'll just
that slip your mind.
completely
Yeah.
forget
That's
about.
why I have a note thing on my phone is like, as soon as I hear it, pause, write this down, or I'll forget.
The only notes I keep on this book is I keep my kings and my Koontzes.
That is the most important part. If we could distill If we distilled the episode down to its two most important features, it would be Kiss Me Fat Boy and Kings and Koontz.
That's right.
I'm pretty sure we come back to this park, don't we?
So all of Eddie Cochran is in this one chapter.
But I feel like did we not? I feel like there was a scene where they come back to this park, or
It
somebody
was
wants to check out the park.
It was in Mike's. He finds the penknife that belonged to him.
The framing
and sees the blood leading down to the.
The framing device for this chapter is Mike. So the chapter opens on Mike and him leaving for the day, and then going to the park, and then we go back.
That's right.
We have a flashback within a flashback.
That is okay. So I will go back and say this might be where some of the people got a little confused.
It can definitely be a little confusing.
It's the flashbacks in the flashbacks,
and then we flash forward to our current timeline flashback with Mike not discovering the body, but finding the knife and finding blood on the grass, and essentially he could have found the body, but he decided to run, and then he finds out later that Eddie died, and they think it may have been at the park.
I think there's a Rick and Morty joke that mocks flashbacks within flashbacks.
King does it a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Dam in the Barrens, which is Eddie Kasprek, our main Kasprek.
Our main Eddie.
Our main Eddie. Our main Eddie. Eds. Or Eds, as we call him, or Richie calls him.
I hate when you call me Eds.
Okay, Matt, why is Eddie a loser?
I mean, he's just the sick boy.
He's the hypochondriac.
Well,
yeah.
Quote unquote, sick
unquote.
boy, mama's boy.
Mama's boy,
It's
boy.
It's more Munchausen's by
I feel like
proxy.
he's the most typical loser. Like, he's like that.
He's
asthma
definitely
inhaler,
he's the nerd. Yeah.
He wants
the
to fuck
nerdy
his
kid.
mom.
Who you also just... I
like how I made eye contact with you right there.
I feel like I'm just like continuously feeling bad for Eddie. Especially after you read the book once, and then you go back and read it again, and you know that, like, oh, well, his pharmacist is just putting some water and a little bit of, like, stuff for taste and this
camphor,
this thing, and his mom is questioning why it's so cheap, and his mom is like a bougie bitch, because there's the
I can't get you mad because I love lobster too.
Oh yeah, that's what I was getting. So because he used to sit on the train tracks and wait for the train game to come by, and there's the drunk dude that one night. He's like, last run, and he's like, take this to your mom. Just throws a cart of lobster out and takes a big swig of his flask.
I would have let that guy blow me for a dime. I'll take your crate of lobster. You can have my 10-year-old penis in your mouth. That's fine.
Weren't those two separate dudes?
They were.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't let the homeless guy.
Okay, you wouldn't let
the guy with syphilis and.
But the guy who gives me a crate of lobster, he can blow me all he wants.
But his mom gets mad because like Eddie doesn't
want to eat it.
Right. And then she invites a friend over.
A lot of kids don't like seafood, lady. Get over it.
Lobster. I feel like lobster is also kind of like a. That's not like a starter seafood. That's like because it's.
It doesn't look great, especially if you've never seen it before. It looks like you just cooked a giant bug.
It is a giant bug.
Okay, well,
it is.
Okay.
But it's a delicious bug.
It is a very big bug.
The only crab I can eat is crab cakes because it doesn't look like crab.
But yeah, I mean.
Well, she makes lobster salad. That just looks like tuna salad.
Yeah, that's fine. I could eat that.
But yeah, Ed's is just your typical hypochondriac, sick boy, mama's boy, loser, nerd.
And
I mean,
since we've already gotten into it, his relationship with his mom, his dad, has passed.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, it's very bad.
His mom is just.
And there's a lot of
insane.
This is where you start to get some of those Oedipal complexes undertones.
I would say, aside from Bev,
this is
probably the worst.
This is the worst
because he's like, what is it? He says she takes him to the hospital once a week or once a month or something, and has him checked up. And if he even has like the slightest ding or anything, she'll go take him to the hospital and like she just throws fits.
It's why I think
she has to be rich.
Or at least have something with decent insurance.
There's something.
I don't think it says how his dad dies, or at least what he did.
I don't remember. I just remember them. I just remember them saying that his mother was huge.
He probably had like a good a trust fund or a good life insurance policy or something.
Yeah, just enough.
Yeah.
Does it afford to go to the doctors that much?
I guess.
And it's insane because, like, there are so many times when I think this is, like, Ed's being down the Barrens is, like, the weirdest one for me, considering how overprotective his mom is.
Yeah.
And she
don't know about that gray water.
She just
I
lets him...
I don't...
You would think...
I figure he just lies about where he's going.
You would... Probably.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like that Ben's mom's attitude where he's trying to keep him in... Like, she's trying to, like, you know, keep him happy and stuff. They kind of would switch a little bit with that, and she would be trying to, like, do that to Ed. They keep him... You know, you stay inside. You don't need anyone else but me kind of thing. Because it kind of feels like that's how she is. Like...
Well, she's hoping that he's going to get another crate of lobster. That's the only reason she lets him leave the house.
Or she's hoping he'll get hurt so she can
use that as an excuse to not let him hang out with his friends anymore.
Even if it's not like a conscious hope he gets hurt.
Because she's fucked up.
Yeah. The second most fucked up parent.
And then we get to the whole fucking homeless guy underneath the house, underneath the porch.
I'll blow you for a dime.
Bobby will do it for a nickel.
That's another thing. The first time I read it, I don't think I realized that there was an actual homeless man.
There's an actual,
and then
that gave him the complex.
Yeah.
I forgot that too until I reread it.
Because he goes, doesn't he go?
He goes back
because
he's like, "Why am I going back?"
He has the experience first with the homeless guy,
and then the homeless guy offers to blow him.
Then he goes back and he goes
under the porch,
and he's just like a kid playing a game. I'm a hobo,
but he's also thinking to himself, like, "I know I shouldn't be going under here. I don't want to go under here, but I don't understand why I'm doing it."
And then he goes up to the little window that would be in, like, you know, in the basement.
And then it breaks outwards.
The leper.
And then we get the whole do it for a dime.
I love that speech.
Was it a nickel for overtime?
15 cents
15
is
cents for overtime. Bobby will do it for
anytime.
Bobby does it for a dime. 15 cents for overtime. Billy does it anytime.
It does it anytime. Yeah.
Okay, so
which Bob grabbed.
There's either yeah, that's exactly. So there's 4 or 5 times that I almost put this down. This was the first one.
Really?
The first time I read it.
Well, because it's constantly talking about him, like, giving Ed's a fucking blowjob. Like,
this just reminded me of my childhood. So
I mean,
I just kept
children get sexually assaulted. Like, I'm afraid to let my kids do anything without me being there, and I'm maybe a little bit of a helicopter parent, but I'm afraid of, you know, my daughter getting cornered by some random adult in a store and just getting dragged into a bathroom and. Don't worry, I'm going to pay you to let me do this.
It's a scary world.
Yeah. And I think another big reason why that scene got me so much the first time I read it is that's like the first like disgustingly explicit sex thing that happens in the book, and it just caught me super off guard.
It's the first.
And on top of it being like...
It's not even the worst
He describes like the homeless guy and the way Pennywise looks in him very detailed, and it's like sores, and this is just a ragged disease.
Silver suit, and the orange puffs are like falling off.
And he's just like,
come back, bring your friends.
And then there's this tenseful scene where he's trying to get out, and there's one of those like garden like checkered cross things, and he's trying to break out.
And then he feels cobwebs on the back of his neck, and he thought he was touched.
And it's just, and it's like, it's weird because you know that it's a flashback. Or no, this one isn't a flash. Well, this one is a flashback.
Yeah, they're all flashbacks. It's not a flashback in a.
But you know he's gonna live. You know he's gonna be all right because you know it's a flashback. But you still are like, fuck, like get out of there, kid. Like run.
That's the best part about this book is, and this is something that it's very hard for me to get over. Is if I know a character lives, I find it very hard to care. And this I still do.
No, you still like the scenes are so like stressful at some points, and it's just like. Crawl, Ed. Crawl. Fucking get out of there. You don't have money. You can't get, like...
Your mom can afford to take you to the hospital.
But also,
you don't need 10 cents.
Also, every time Ed goes, I'm a hobo, I laugh. I can't help it. He's just like, I'm a hobo. I live in a box. And then it's like, oh my god.
I ride the rail. It's such a kid thing to do.
Like, yes, I like... trains are cool. Yeah, I get it. But,
who pretends to be a hobo?
Not me. I wanted to be Genki from Monster Rancher.
I wanted to be Godzilla so I could fight Rodan.
Okay, so next chapter, Georgie's room in the house on Nebold Street. Richie. Why is Richie a loser, Matt?
Because he's us.
He's just a dork. I mean, he's just... He loves to make voices. He loves to be, like, almost... the class... I feel like he's, like, the class clown, right?
One of you mentioned ADHD earlier.
But I also think he definitely has ADHD
100%.
at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And like we mentioned last time, using the funny voices to kind of cope with maybe like awkwardness or shyness, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
He's also he's just a dork.
Wears his nice thick rimmed glasses.
But he's also like, I feel like Richie is like, as much as Mike is the glue that sticks everybody together, I feel like Richie also does that too, because I feel like from the start he's just accepting people, and he's just like, Ben comes in and he's off to the start, just making the voices and just including Ben into everything.
Immediately gives him a nickname.
Yeah.
Hey, Haystack.
Big Haystack.
Who apparently was a wrestler.
He was a wrestler.
Well, no, because Haystack is the name. Wasn't Haystack the name of the cop in the show that Ben likes?
I remember them saying name? It was a Haystack Calhoun.
Haystack Calhoun, I think, because there's a show that Ben likes to watch on TV, and it's a cop, and he's a bigger dude, and he looks up to him.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's right.
Because that's where, because when in this, we haven't talked. Oh, we haven't talked about this scene yet.
Which scene?
God,
Ben 10.
I mean, are we gonna? Did we skip past that part?
You can say it. I can cut
just
out
the part where he gets carved.
Oh yeah, we just never really talked about it. Go ahead and talk about it.
I mean, because that's so. I mean, after Ben, leaves the library.
Richie nicknames Ben Haystack after the obese wrestler Haystack Calhoun.
Oh, maybe he's a wrestler. I thought he was a cop.
No, that's another part.
That's another.
That's his favorite show.
Character that
he identifies with that cop because
I must
he's
have just
overweight.
got it mixed up or something. But I mean, there's the whole section where Ben leaves the library at what seems to be late-ish, because there's a curfew, and that part always made me like, well, he's leaving so late.
Hey, he has his watch though.
And this kid's got to walk who knows how far, and he knows that Butch and not Butch, Henry and all of them are out there, and they follow him and they chase him down, and they pretty much, rest in peace, his books. And they hold him down, and he starts quizzing them. He's like, "What are you gonna do when I ask to cheat off your homework?" He goes, "What do you do if someone asks you to cheat off your homework?" And Ben says, "Yes," but then he says, "No, only if I ask to cheat off your homework, you say yes."
Yeah.
And then of course, the other two are not really down for the whole
carving
his name into
No, Henry, don't cut him.
And of course, then Ben, he does what he's seen on the cop show, and he uses his weight and kind of like pushes him around, and then that leads into the whole down the hill scene,
kicking him in the balls,
where he kicks him, and then Henry goes flying.
There's like a bad nut punch in every part so far, because as Bev did it to Tom with the belt in part 1, and then Ben gets Henry in the nads in part 2. I don't remember the other ones, but I bet there's going to be more.
Is this the part? Then we get the flashback for his first meeting with Pennywise.
So
he goes and he falls asleep, right?
He runs away. He crawls into a culvert. He falls asleep,
and then he gets.
And that's when he remembers.
Yeah. And then he hears Bill and Eddie. Playing, and then he hears them talk about it. And that's when they all meet.
Yep. That is correct, still. So, Richie and his parents.
His
pretty
parents
normal.
Yeah, his parents ain't bad. They're no Mike parents.
I like his dad.
His dad strong-arms him into getting a better deal for the yard.
It's hilarious. He's like, because he tricks him into mowing the front and back of the yard.
His dad knows how to negotiate. His dad wasn't gonna be manipulated by no puppy dog guys.
Because this is gonna be the setup for when Ben, Richie, and Bev go to the movies.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a setup for a whole other bully scenario.
Yep.
But I think Richie's relationship with his parents is just normal. It's his dad's just a I don't think his dad's strict. I think his dad's just because his dad's a
dentist.
Dentist?
Yeah.
I think he's a dentist,
He's
right?
a dentist, yes.
He's super. He's the like
Because
professional.
Because he's like, they just spend all the money I gave you. And...
But did I forget to give you your allowance?
Yeah.
Oh. You feel like you're gonna die if you don't see that movie, aren't
Yes.
you?
Yeah.
He knows how to play his son too.
It's just written really well. I don't know. His mom seems just like a normal mom.
Right.
She wants to eat wheat toast and lose weight.
Do you play your kids like that?
No.
Oh.
Not yet.
That's how I'm gonna picture it though. I bet you're gonna die if you don't go see that Mikasa.
You're gonna die if you don't see the new Fantastic Beasts movie.
That's soon, isn't it?
That was last week.
Yeah.
Wait, is it out already?
Yeah.
Oh.
It flopped.
Did it?
Yeah, it's pretty. They've said they all flopped.
Yeah.
Have you already seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh.
I watched box office scores as kind of a hobby.
I mean, I feel like that the box office score of this movie is more reflective of people's opinion of J.K. Rowling than of the movie itself.
Is the one dude? I mean, I assume the one dude's better than Johnny Depp.
I think
Matt
that
Nicholson.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp's lawsuit might
No?
have something to do with it because he's currently suing Amber Heard.
As
And
you
it's all in the news right now
Wait,
while
wait.
this movie's coming
Also,
out.
Ezra Miller was arrested yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he
Again.
Wait, he got arrested
He
again.
threw a chair at a lady and hit her
So
in
now
the
he's
face.
Didn't he already?
He got arrested
Just-
like 2
just
weeks ago.
last week.
But for
yeah.
like almost the same thing,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
assault.
For breaking into a room and threatening somebody,
Okay.
and this week throws a chair.
Side. I actually think the Fantastic Beasts movies are fantastic.
I like them.
But
It's not a knock against their quality. I think that the reason for
J.K. Rowling, Johnny Depp, Ezra Miller,
that trifecta is affecting the box office.
Matt Nicholson is good. I don't think he's better than Johnny Depp, but it's like it just feels like a different character because he has to play them. He has to play him differently because you can't just like take Johnny Depp's role and then try to do the same
Try
thing.
to play it like Johnny Depp.
Yeah, you have to do something different, and by doing that, it feels like a different character. Real quick, this is the last thing on this. So the movie is, and this is not a spoiler. The movie title is Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. Emma and I are sitting in the theater, and like, she's like, "What do you think the secret is?" The secret is that Dumbledore's gay, and he outs himself in the first scene.
Oh, and that was edited out in China. That hasn't been great publicity either. So.
Okay.
All right, where were we?
We talked about so much fantastic.
Richie's good. And then for Richie, as far as we know at this point, Richie hasn't had an encounter with Pennywise. He has some sort of dream.
It was just a dream,
It was
guys.
a dream, yeah. But spoiler alerts, we'll come back to that.
It wasn't a dream, was it?
Okay, cleaning up Beverly Marsh. Ooh.
Hey Ryan, don't you love how this chapter is about how women are afraid of their periods?
Okay, so when I read this book last year, I was listening to a podcast, which I won't out them, but there's a podcast that does a chapter by after every chapter they do an episode reviewing the chapter.
Some of the chapters are like 30 seconds
And
long.
some of their episodes are less than 10 minutes long.
Okay, it was like some of them are literally like...
They chose a direction and they went with it.
I'm pretty sure there are chapters that are like 2 sentences. That's like, chapter 2.
It's 2 guys and their sister, or it's 1 girl and her 2 brothers. And they get to this chapter. This is the chapter where I stopped listening. One of her brothers says, King is writing this because Beverly's fear is becoming a woman. Her fear is her period. And that's why Pennywise manifests as blood. All young women are afraid of their periods. And his sister, who's his co-host in the podcast, says, "Stop mansplaining periods to our audience. That is not how that works." And he tells us, no, I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure that is.
I'm pretty sure if I walked into a bathroom and it was full of blood, I'd be fucking freaked out.
Yeah, I would too.
I will say that
It's not... This whole scene isn't about that. It's about the fact that her dad will fucking beat the shit out of her if he finds out the bathroom is dirty.
Yeah.
And she's freaking out because it's covered in blood. And there's just a whole thing where he's like almost brushing his head against the mirror and he's going to get it on him.
I think I'm more afraid of periods than the average 11-year-old girl.
I think...
Because I've had to scrape a tampon off of a ceiling when I was a janitor.
I think the majority of men are more afraid.
Okay, I have actually literally walked into a room that's been covered in blood before because when I did housekeeping at the hospital.
Yeah, so you know what
I
it's
had to
like.
clean up an OR room after a double knee replacement, and it literally looked like this.
It looks like a crime scene, yeah.
And it was scary.
A dude with colon cancer shit himself in one of my bathrooms once too, and there's so much blood and shit everywhere. That'll give you a complex.
Yeah, why is Bev a loser?
I have never been more thankful to have the job that I have.
You're welcome.
Because she's a woman.
Basically, she's a poor woman.
She's a poor girl. The other girls in her class
They're all popular.
They're popular. Money. They have money.
And there's kind of a posh. That's not
like,
how girls talk attitude. She's a little
that,
tomboyish.
Like Bev is cool.
Yeah.
Like,
she's cool in a way that they aren't. She's beautiful in a way that they can't be.
I feel like if this book was played,
yeah.
if this book was written in this time period, Bev would be a popular girl.
Or, I don't know.
If it was these days, she'd be nerdy for different reasons, or
she wouldn't be.
She wouldn't be written like this.
Yeah, it'd be different. But
the way she's described is, the other girls hate her subconsciously because they know that all the money and resources they have will never make up for the difference in beauty that Bev has that they'll never be able to obtain.
Yeah.
And maybe in addition to that, this isn't said, but also like the natural magnetism that she has.
Yeah, she just has a great personality on top of it all.
I mean, she's sense of humor.
She's
and
awesome.
Just like
she's quick-witted. She knows how to fuck with someone like Richie.
Yeah. All right. So, Bev and her parents. Well, her mom. Let's just talk about her mom real quick. Is her mom the real villain?
I don't know if I could say she's the real villain. Does he touch you, Bev? At least she asked, I guess.
There's like the...
Never mind, it's fine.
For the most part, her mom seems
good.
Seems
normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, she goes to work.
It seems okay given the situation.
But also, I feel that she knows that her husband and Bev's dad's an asshole, a shitty person. But she still.
He has no vices.
He does.
Yeah, I
don't trust the man that don't drink.
What's the thing? He's never gonna leave dairy. I'm gonna live till. Is it 110?
110 because I don't drink. I don't smoke.
I have no vices. No reason I shouldn't live for till 100. I'm 110.
He just hits his daughter when she doesn't clean right.
The mom knows something is going on, and she doesn't do anything about it.
And then there's that weird sex scene where Bev's like listening.
Oh, I love
sex.
it. I love it.
They're
so
doing
much.
their sex thing.
Their sex act.
Dad sounds like a 2-pump chump.
Okay, I'm gonna save that for
her dad sounds like he does a pretty good job because her mom doesn't sound like she's in pain.
She's in pain internally.
Sorry.
Okay, so talking about Bev's dad,
dick fishing.
We don't get a lot. We really just get the start of what we're going to learn about Bev and her dad and their relationship. What we learned in part 1 is that there were hints that he was abusive and that has translated into her relationships with men as an adult, Tom specifically. And here we do get some instances of abuse where he hits her, for screaming in the bathroom with the blood.
I wouldn't have hit you if you would have told me it was a spider.
Girls are supposed to be
afraid of spiders.
You just need to speak up because I worry about you.
I worry about you, baby. I worry
a
lot.
I'd never hit you if... God, he says something here that's... He's just manipulative. He's just gaslighty, manipulative. Like
he makes it her fault no matter what.
And then... I know he's a house cleaning. He's a housekeeping.
He works at the hospital.
At a hospital.
He's a janitor.
Then there's a line where it's like, when I come back, make sure this because I clean up shit all day.
Basically have the same job.
I don't need to come home and clean up. I need the place to be clean. Oh fuck! They're at breakfast. What is it? they're at breakfast, and he's like, make me a sausage. He's like, well, we're out of them. And then he gets mad about it, and it's like, bake me a hamburger, and then she's like, well, there's not much, and then he like folds the newspaper down and starts getting like kind of aggressive. So she makes him like a dinky little oh my god,
He's due.
Keep talking about the hamburger.
Yeah, you love that hamburger.
Well, because it's just like he gets very aggressive just about that little thing. His like, he has no...
You cook me meat.
He has no trigger. He is always on the,
he's
aggressive.
Always ready.
He's
looking for a reason.
And like I said, I think the whole blood scene is just because her fear is her dad. And I mean, first off, this scene is disgusting. This scene. The first time I read this book, the whole pipe drain scene fucked me up. Just every time I went to the bathroom, I was in the shower, just like, don't talk to me. I was like, don't say anything, because I mean, she starts hearing the voices of all the kids that have died.
I was at work cleaning bathrooms like a few weeks ago, and
I
I swear to God, I heard something from another floor, and I work in a mental health hospital, and I just smoked right the fuck out.
Nope.
I was like, that bathroom can be bleached later.
We're gonna come back to Bev and her dad more.
A lot more.
So we'll save the bulk of that conversation until we find out some more of their let's call them misadventures. Daniel, why is Stan a loser?
He's Jewish.
Thank you.
He killed Christ.
I believe that was his father. Speaking of his father, we don't really know much of anything about his parents.
Yeah,
his dad likes to birdwatch.
Yeah. I guess we could assume he has normal parents just because we don't know.
I feel like we get like a tiny snippet, and they seem just like
his dad calls him and tells him to go to the park and look for a bird.
They just seem like your average Jews.
They're just normal people, like normal parents. Nothing insane.
What if Stan's parents are the real monster, but we just never know? That's the part of the story that King never put on paper.
He's the child of Pennywise. He'll confirm it on Twitter.
That's when we get the sequel.
Not the It 2.5 remastered.
Welcome to Derry.
Welcome to Derry.
One of my favorite things about this guy is he's just kind of learned to roll with all the Jewish jokes. He's like, yeah.
I feel like if you're friends with Richie, you just learn to put up with.
He's like, yeah, get it out now. Get it out so we can like build a dam.
What about Stan's first encounter with Pennywise at the Stan Pipe?
I will get to that with my kings and Koontzes.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
I'm trying to remember.
It's the dead kids who drown in the
Stan
Pipe.
Oh, is this the? There's like a door.
Yeah, and
is it that
it's blown open,
where it's...
and then he hears the sloshing sound coming down the steps.
Oh yes, okay.
And the curling of the finger.
Yeah,
that's
well,
been
this is the first scene where we kind of get the idea of what Pennywise doesn't like, because Stan starts talking about birds as Pennywise is coming down the steps.
Oriole, Scarlet Tanager, French, Cardinal.
But like before that, I mean, he goes into the door and it's the typical carnival. Mm-hmm. He can smell the pork pies.
He hears the
popcorn
music
and the music, but then in his like peripheral vision or whatever, he starts hearing footsteps, and they sound wet and they're sloshing, but it sounds like the music is playing louder. So this kind of starts sneaking up. And then the things start getting, I think it describes it as like, kind of like, wretched. Like you can smell like the flat, like it gets a little bit more gruesome, I guess would be the word. Like you can smell the decaying flesh, and he starts freaking out. And then I can't remember what does Pennywise look in this one? Is he just like
he's a bunch of dead kids.
He's just
because
he's two dead kids.
There were children who drowned in the standpipe, and Stan had heard those stories, and that had freaked him out. But this is where it kind of gets into a little bit into the psychology of Stan, where what messes him up isn't the same as what scares the other kids.
It's not that he saw a monster.
He's offended that it's out of the order of the world as he knows it.
Yeah, if this thing exists, then anything could exist.
So then we get that, like I said at the start, we get the that kind of hint at what Pennywise doesn't like is when the kids don't pay attention to it. They stop thinking about what scares them, and he starts naming off things he likes. He starts yelling these birds' names
when they don't buy into the nonsense.
Because he's trying to get out of the door.
Yeah.
And the door's not opening, like someone's on the other side keeping it closed, and then he just keeps saying the birds' names, and then eventually the door just opens, and he gets out.
And then it just stands at the doorway and sort of beckons him back, and he runs.
And Satan's like, nope.
I mean, I'd run too.
Yes. Yes, I would also run.
You'd run from the dead children?
I would move.
I would have ran away.
I would have told my parents, I would have been one of those kids with the stick with the bandana on it.
Yeah, you would have been a hobo.
I would have put my Bionicles and my Yu-Gi-Oh cards and like a snack cake and a PB&J, and I would have been out of there.
Matt's a hobo. He's gonna ride the rail.
I would have done a Zoidberg crab shuffle. Okay. So, our last chapter is Derry, the Second Interlude. We get more about Mike and his family. It actually takes place after the events of the summer are over. Not to get into that too much. Where Mike's dad is dying of cancer in the hospital, and he tells him about the black spot, which... This is a very, very... Maybe one of the most serious parts of the entire book. But maybe I've just seen Muppet Treasure Island too many times. Because I always hear, the black spot! It's a pirate's death sentence!
I love that that's where your mind goes.
Okay, so how does the Second Interlude continue to build Derry itself as a character?
I mean, it kind of shows how... I mean, this is another one of those parts that kind of shows the racism section, because...
You get the northern version of the Ku Klux Klan.
This is like the white... What do they call it in the book? They have a specific name, because it's supposed to be like... It's like, they didn't want to be called the KKK, they want their own thing. I don't know if it's an actual thing or not.
So it's like the something for... super clean towns. I don't know.
I know, but I mean, because it's during Prohibition. This whole section is during Prohibition.
Yeah.
And it's talking about a lot of the bars. It's naming off all the bars, places where people can go to get. They're not supposed to have drinks, but they can get it. Mm-hmm. And it's and a lot of the soldiers that he's with they're all black. They're all in the same company. And they're just trying to go out, get a drink, and have a good time,
like everyone else.
And a lot of the people are like, "No,
we don't want black people.
You can't be here,
even though we don't go to these bars."
Yeah, because it's not, and I think it even states it's not the people that run the bars.
Yeah,
it's not the people it's the higher ups. It's the people that in like the small town government that are even says like they're drinking in their mansions with their fancy stuff, and
it's the main legion of white decency.
Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, and it's supposed to be they don't want that, and then they find, the place that eventually becomes the black spot, and they clean it up. It even says that they find out that they all have music talent, and they start like a jazz band, and eventually it starts to gain that traction, and people from out of town are coming in, and everyone. Then
Yes, it's real. Yes, it was real.
But those higher up people start getting mad because this place is gaining traction, and I think Mike's dad even says like, all they had to do was report us, and we could have just people would have stopped coming, and we wouldn't have had a place. But they went further ahead on that, and they
and it's very
killed people.
It's very. It doesn't excuse any of their behavior, but it's insinuated that there's like that Pennywise-esque influence over people's choices.
We haven't really talked about like what triggers Pennywise that way. Does that come up later?
I think it comes up.
Is it a later? That's a later thing that we'll talk about. Okay.
I think it's more explicitly spelled out later.
Okay.
You can make. It's hard to say you can make guesses at this point because we have all read the book multiple times now. But yeah, we'll talk more about that as later.
Yeah.
Continuing this and jumping into scary shit.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had! I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Instead of just talking about every scary thing that happens in this part, I want us to kind of go around and talk about the ones that kind of made the biggest impact on us. For me, it's the fire at the black spot. House fires have always kind of been a thing that I'm afraid of. Growing up watching the History Channel, I've seen a lot of documentaries about things like this that happened in real life. Probably of all the things in part 2, like the section or the line that scared me the most was when Mike's dad and his friends are in the middle of the burning building and they're trying to find a way to get out, and they try to go towards the door, and Dick Halloran stops them, and he says, not word for word, but he says, all of those people are all slammed against that door. It's just like a wall of meat against that door. It's not going to budge. If you go that way, you're going to die. And it just, the mental image of all those people crammed up against the door to the point where nobody can get it open and nobody can leave. Whereas if they all were just within their right minds and could just take a literal step back and let the person at the front open the door, they could all escape. But because of the panic.
Panic and pure havoc and just fear.
And then he tops the whole thing off with this very real, scary scene by adding Pennywise at the end as that giant bird. Who's not even flying, he's floating on 2 big red balloons, and it's just like, oh, fuck. Matt, what got you the most in this section?
I'm trying to think of something that just isn't like your typical like horror stuff.
So just kind of running down the things. So we've got Ben and the Mummy. You've got Bill and his photo album. You've got Bill and Richie and the werewolf at Nebolt Street, which we didn't even really talk about. Mike and the bird, Eddie and the swamp, the creature from the Black Lagoon, Eddie and the blowjob hobo.
We really did just skip right over the werewolf, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We totally did. Bev and the blood, and Stan and the dead kids. Where are all the dead kids? Fuck, that werewolf scene is sweet.
I mean, it is. Yeah.
We did completely skip the whole movie theater, the whole, fight with the bullies and all that stuff. And
what was real scary to me on rereading this is the fact that Bill could just sneak into his dad's room and take that gun and just take it out and go. I know they're not going to play with it, but essentially to go play with it with a loaded gun. I got my dad's gun.
If his mom
it's a Walter P-38 from the war.
If his mom would have just given him that 22, he would have had his own gun.
True. True.
Then Henry Bowers wouldn't have been a problem.
A lot of these parents are just more responsible. A lot of this shit.
A lot of these parents just left Derry. Then I guess, never mind. That's a spoiler.
So what scares you, Matt?
I think the whole town itself was just scary. I don't know.
That's a respectable answer.
No, I agree. I mean,
like, it's just people don't care about other people. So we get that. So we do get a scene that I also did mention in Ben's part, where a car drives past Ben while he's being
just ignores him.
Carved, or like why he's being why he has a knife against his stomach, and that's another thing that happens in the current day when they throw the kid, the Adrian, and that car drives right past. Nobody in this town cares. And that even today, I mean, there's still people I would imagine some people here would do that same thing.
Right.
Now, it might not be as normalized.
No.
But I feel like just a lot of the people in this town are not good people. There are good people. I'm not saying all of them, but the majority of them are just...
Or Pennywise exerts an influence...
I mean, it could also be that Pennywise has been rooted there for so long that there's just an aura around Derry, which I think that is kind of insinuated to some point that maybe it kind of Pennywise being there so long, it's just bred this.
I'm gonna let my nerd flag fly here for a little bit. It's almost like a Percy Jackson-esque mist.
Okay, around Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah.
The veil
well,
that's
it like
Harry
prevents.
Potter books.
Yes.
it's better.
Okay.
Don't listen to him.
It prevents. So in Percy Jackson, the mist prevents normal people from seeing monsters, and maybe there's like Pennywise's influence will fog over the things he doesn't want adults to see.
I thought the mist brought monsters.
That's a different mist.
Okay.
That's a better mist.
But so like you're saying, like if something is like that's happening, it just makes it look like it's not happening.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like,
that could be.
Maybe they drive by because they don't see it.
Are you talking about that movie, The Mist?
It's based on a Stephen King book.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've covered
is that
it before.
The one with the dude from Superman, Smallville in it?
Yeah.
That
I don't
movie?
know. I've never seen Smallville.
Is it that guy?
I don't know if it's that actor. I think it is.
I think so.
I
don't know. I just think Derry as a whole is just terrifying. I mean, it's just I would not want to live here, especially. I don't know how somebody lives here and doesn't look into the history of the town. Like there hasn't been until Mike does it, and it seems like people have done it before because he's compiling other people's notes, but people still continue to just like.
I think one of them flat out tells him to just not
Stop
do it.
Yeah, he tells him to stop. Daniel, what's the scariest part for you?
That this book brings out bad takes concerning periods.
Everything's a joke to you.
Yeah, I'm Richie. God, after you told me that story about your bully, now I'm thinking being held down with a knife point and having a name carved into me sounding pretty terrifying right now.
I don't think he would have actually done it, but...
He carved an H.
No, I mean the real boy.
Pinocchio?
You thought Henry was going to stop.
No.
I'm a real boy!
Tell a lie. Yeah, say something silly like you're wearing ladies' underwear. I'm wearing ladies' underwear.
Are you? It's a thong!
Okay, enough Shrek 2.
What's the Shrek podcast?
I'll do a Shrek podcast.
I would also do a Shrek podcast.
Actually, they're coming out with a new Puss in Boots movie.
Are they?
Yes.
Have they had as many Puss in Boots movies as they've had
there's
Shrek
only been
movies?
2.
I thought there'd already been a second one.
There was a Netflix show.
Oh, okay. All right. Way to interrupt the scary moments.
Wait a minute. What would the name of our Shrek rewatch podcast be?
Probably something.
What are you doing in my swamp?
I was going to say some pun based off of that stupid-ass song from the first movie.
All-Star.
All-Star, yeah.
No, there's got to be a better...
Shrek All-Stars.
Toadstools.
That's
Talking with toadstools.
Okay, that's better.
Toadstool talk.
The podcast of Far,
Shut
Far
up,
Away.
Donkey. He's good at that.
Just want to do like a Shrek RPG, tabletop RPG.
Ooh, that could be good. I'd be down for that.
That'd be hilarious.
Okay.
Back to what's scary.
Yeah.
Are we done with that now?
Being held down by 2 dudes and then carved up. That scares me.
I have to work in about.
We're starting to wind down. All right, kiss me, fat boy.
Kiss me, fat boy.
How does part 2 convey the theme of burgeoning sexuality in pre-adolescence?
Well, it just further confirms that I was Richie as a child, just looking at Playboys in front of my friends.
Well, there's also like a whole. I mean, there's also just a whole scene showing that Bev is going through puberty.
Yeah.
And like she pretty much talks about checking herself out every day in the morning to see if her boobs have gotten bigger.
Yeah, I feel like Stephen King should have had one of the boys measuring their dicks to even things out.
Why is there a ruler in the bathroom?
I think the best scene for me was where Richie just randomly meets Bev in the street on the way to the movie, and he just randomly gets the, I wonder what color her underwear is.
Oh, he
why
also gets,
did I have that thought?
Who is it? Ben or Richie gets jealous of Ben, I think.
Yeah, because
Bev starts talking to Ben more than he's talking to Richie, or they feel like they know each other more.
When they get to the theater, and Ben comes around the corner, Richie observes that Bev and Ben give each other a look of recognition that he's left out of, and that's why he feels jealous.
Thus adds to the, what would we even call this, love pentagon?
I think there's as we get through it, there's a pretty distinct triangle between Bill, Bev, and Ben. I mean, they all love Bev. Kings and Koontzes.
Oh my God, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Matt, your favorite and your least favorite part of part 2.
Why was it Bev's panties?
I think they were red.
When
I pictured pink.
I love. So Richie has this part in this section where they get caught by the. He's not like, is he a cop? The Irish guy.
Yeah, Officer now.
After they built the dam,
and he's like, "Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it." And he eventually breaks and does this Irish accent, and it makes
Irish.
me quote Irish, but it makes me kind of like go stop that. But it's also like, okay, this is kind of like it's kind of funny because he just has his inner monologue of like, "Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm gonna do it."
Top of the morning to you.
And then he says like the most basic stuff, and I'm just like, "Oh no, Richie."
It reminds me of something that we would do up in
What is it?
Boston.
I'm just seeing if I could find the quote quickly, I would just read it. But yeah, it's hilarious.
That is very.
But there's a lot of good parts in this section.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of just good, like really good scenes of just pure, them just being kids, friendship. There's like, there's scenes where they're like going off with each other, and Ben, who just started becoming part of this group, is making friends with. I think he goes off with Ed.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if it's Ed or I think it's Ed. And I can't remember if they're talking about something that they have in common, and he invites them over. I think. Then
he also tells Eddie about the chocolate milk trick, so he doesn't have to go to the hospital.
Yeah,
Eddie tells Ben, or no, Ben tells Eddie.
Eddie that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, there's just a lot of really good, friendship scenes in this one that are really nice, and things. I mean, which is good because shit's about to get real stressful.
Yeah.
And Koontz's least favorite part?
Yeah, it's our slops.
Just slop.
I mean, it's gotta be the whole Bev's dad scene. I just don't. I hate her dad.
It's uncomfortable.
So fucking much.
Yeah, it's like a cold hot tub. It's like I don't want to be here.
I don't know.
It's like work on a Monday. It's like, this is bad.
There's a lot of Bev scenes in this book that are just so uncomfortable, and it's because of her dad. I mean,
One of them is another one of the places where I almost put the book down.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Daniel, I think I know what your Koontz is, but what's your king?
My king is Stanley's offense to Pennywise. Is his absolute he is mad that this thing even tries to exist. And the reason is it's almost like Stephen King went, I want to include a H.P. Lovecraft character in my story. Because that's how H.P. Lovecraft characters react to the otherworldly horrors. Their minds reject it. To the point they either go insane or they kill themselves to avoid it. And it's almost like Stephen King wrote a H.P. Lovecraft character and then surrounded him by Stephen King characters.
He cites Lovecraft as one of his primary influences, up there with Richard Matheson and Shirley Jackson.
And that's why this chapter speaks to me so much, because it also sits there and makes me think, how would I react if I found something very literally impossible to where my mind couldn't fit it in my brain hole? And that's why I love it so much. And my Koontz is probably Eddie's mom.
Eddie's mom.
She does not gotta go on.
She did not have an OnlyFans, and I'm disappointed.
Hold on. Did you actually Google that?
Are you gonna look at Eddie's mom? Only
Does Eddie's... I can't type when I'm not working.
Mom have Munchausen.
Only fans. Question about Eddie's mom scene. No. Who is the OnlyFans mom? What?
What were we on? My Koontz
your
is
Koontz
Eddie's
is
mom.
Eddie's mom. Okay. My king is the black spot, with the werewolf chapter as a close second.
The werewolf chapter is really good.
My Koontz is not getting more background on Stan and his family, but I think that's purposeful.
Yeah.
But I want to know more. So just quickly moving on to the Derry Yellow Pages. This is just our section where we're kind of listing out the locations in Derry as we come to them, kind of building out the world. In part 2, we first come to Neibolt Street, the Derry train yards, the Derry City Dump, which we will be back to the Derry City Dump in the future. The Pump House, which will be very important in the future as well. Kansas Street, which is very important in Dreamcatcher. Rulin Farms, Bower Farms, Hanlon Farms, the Kenduskeag River, and the Black Spot. And then our section on the history of Derry. Last time we learned about... What did we learn about last time? The settlers, the Derry company that settled Derry as a logging village and disappeared. This time we got the history of the Black Spot. And then some King Easter eggs. We had 3 references to the turtle in this part. We had Ben trying to hide himself as he's walking away from the school, like a turtle receding into its shell. Mike in the interlude talking about how his fellow losers have forgotten everything that's gone on, and he says, when the time comes, they will hear the voice of the turtle. And then when Beverly falls asleep reading out in the backyard, she remembered she was dreaming about some turtle, some funny little animal. And then just some references to some other King's work. We had a character say, how about all that, happy, crappy sports fans? Which is a reference to what, Daniel?
The kid.
The kid from The Stand. Also...
Can you believe that happy, crappy?
Can you believe that happy, crappy?
I'm going to say that all weekend.
Daniel's favorite character. Also, another reference to The Stand, Agunquit, Maine, the home of Fran and Harold, is referenced in this part of the book. Richie and the doe, when Richie is driving into Derry and he stops and he has that interaction where the doe runs out in the road and they just stare at each other. This also happens in The Body, another Stephen King book. And during that same scene, Richie is passed by an Orenco truck. How are Orenco trucks relevant to the Stephen King multiverse, Daniel?
I don't remember.
That is the truck that kills Gage.
Oh, fuck. Really?
Yes.
I just remember it being a big truck.
Cleves Mills is mentioned in this section. Cleves Mills is the town in Maine where Cycle of the Werewolf takes place. And I forgot to mention this last time, the audiobook is read by Steven Weber, who played Jack Torrance in the 90s miniseries version of The Shining. Yes. Okay, so let's wrap this up. I gave you guys some homework. If Pennywise appeared to you as a kid, what form would he take?
Me?
Yeah.
I would have been Chucky.
Chucky.
110% would have been Chucky. 200% would have been that fucking doll.
I always thought Angelica was the scariest of the Rugrats, but if you think it's Chucky, that's cool.
No, it's actually just the depression that Stu felt.
Oh my god, my heart.
That's dark.
Because I feel it every day.
Oh my god, do you need a hug?
Daniel.
Stiff dream.
I said before it might have been kaijus because I was obsessed with kaijus, but I wasn't really afraid of them. It might have been something to do with snakes because my mom unfortunately imparted a huge fear of snakes onto me.
I was actually going to say mine would be snakes. It wasn't snakes themselves.
Yeah.
If like somebody was like holding a snake, like there's been several times at a zoo where I was able to like go up and pet a snake and handle a snake and it was fine.
Yeah.
What scared me as a kid, probably due to my dad, like when we were hiking, is like don't like pick up any rocks, don't pick up any logs that are like covered in leaves, because snakes like to hide under those things and they'll just jump out and get you.
Yeah.
And I had lots of nightmares as a kid of like getting out of bed in the middle of the night and there's a snake under my bed and it jumps out and bites my leg.
I had a lot of dreams where snakes just chased me. And I think that probably comes back to my current fear of being eaten alive or being swallowed whole.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about Anaconda.
That's on
I
Netflix
was
now.
just thinking about it at the Anaconda movies.
That's,
What about
that's on
Anaconda 2,
Netflix.
The Curse of the Blood Rubies? Or Blood Orchids.
I love how irritated that made me. I was like, ugh, I'm actually Ryan.
Actually, the Anaconda sequel is Curse of the Blood Orchid. Alright, so our question for the listeners this week is, what is your favorite Pennywise monster? Werewolf? Is it the mummy? Is it the
dick-sucking leper?
The dick-sucking leper?
10 cents.
Hit us up on our socials and let us know who your favorite is. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. Just going to let you know what's coming up on the Horror of Babylon. So next week, the new adaptation of Firestarter comes out.
Ooh.
Yeah, we will be seeing that Friday night, and we will drop the episode on Sunday for you all, and that will conclude our Firestarter coverage. I'm sad that it's ending. Are you?
Yeah, kinda.
Kinda.
I really like
It looks
Firestarter.
really good.
It is. If you want
Come with us.
When are you going to it?
we'll see it that Friday, and
Is
we'll.
that next Friday?
No.
Is that
Well, it's in the time warp. Yes, it's the last week of May.
Oh, May. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
This episode, or it's the second to last week of May. So this episode will be airing on Sunday, May 15th.
So what you're saying is I have time to read the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if you want to be I haven't read the book, but
Well,
I
I saw the trailer and they kind of looked interesting, so I was figuring out.
the book is good. The book is good. It's probably not like the one I would pick for you to be like your second King book, but it is a good book.
What would you pick for my second King book?
Pet
Salem's
Cemetery.
Lot.
That's-
Oh.
Pet Cemetery? Is that
Okay,
what I've heard in both?
Those are both good options.
Pet Cemetery is probably his scariest book by far.
Pet Cemetery is what I give to parents.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
it teaches them to pay attention to their kids.
Okay, Sunday, May 22nd, we're going to drop our episode on Firestar 2022. Then our third episode on It will release Sunday, May 29th. Our episode on Woe, which is the Bollywood adaptation of It, will drop the first Sunday in June.
I think we should do a fan dub. Let's do Woe the Abridged.
Oh, I thought we were gonna take either the mini series of the American one or the new ones and do a dub of it.
No, we're gonna do the Indian one.
Real quick before you bounce, we'll show you a clip on YouTube of this thing. Sunday, June 12th, fourth episode on It. June 19th, we're going to cover Pennywise, the Story of It, which is a making-of documentary of the original miniseries. Last Sunday in June, it will be our last episode covering the It book. We'll cover part 5. Then we are covering the It miniseries the first Sunday in July. And then after that, we will be covering Rumiko Takahashi's Mermaid Saga. Yes. And then we'll be doing the first It movie, and then Carmilla, which, if you're not familiar with Carmilla, it's the OG lesbian vampire book. And then last Sunday in July is It Chapter 2 film adaptation. And we're going to be putting off what we're doing next in August. We'll give you plenty of time, but we're not going to be talking about that yet. So just
Carrie also said she wanted to be around for Carmilla.
Carmilla is great, and that is another one that would be good to have somebody without a Y chromosome on the cast.
She's like, Daniel, I'm not letting you talk about lesbian vampires by yourself for 2 hours.
I love Carmilla. Carmilla is so great. I've read it twice.
I love Carmelo's. It's a good candy bar.
Okay, thank you everybody for listening. Stay tuned for our socials. Thank you, Daniel, for being here. And Matt, if you want to take a minute to mention your Twitch stream or any other socials you have, please.
Yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/theconductor_, or you can find me on Twitter at theconductor_, and that's about all I
And
have.
what games do you play?
At the moment, I'm playing Elden Ring.
Oh, okay. See, now I have to subscribe.
So I play a lot of RTSs, card games, strategy games, anything like that. I'm probably going to be playing Persona 4 Golden next.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, weeb shit.
Yeah.
Weebios, your favorite cereal.
Who's best girl and why is it Teddy out of the suit?
Not wrong.
All right, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Daniel and Matt, for joining me tonight. And
Yeah.
stay scary, everybody.
Stay scary.
Stay scary.
And now for the obligatory socials. Like, share and subscribe. Blah blah blah. Follow Daniel at DStarSick on Twitter. Follow Ryan at Darth Damio on Twitter. Find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Goodreads. Become part of the community by joining the Facebook group or asking for our Discord link. Email us at thehorrorofbabylonpodcast@gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/thehorrorofbabylon. You can listen to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music, Stitcher, and Podcast Addict. I need a drink.